The year was 2847. Humans had been traveling through space for only 200 years. In the galaxy, that made them babies. Every other species had been flying between stars for thousands of years. Some had been doing it for millions. The big empires did not care about humans. Why would they? Humans had only 30 small colonies. The Vareth hegemony had 300 worlds. The Cathari collective ruled over 200 planets. Next to them, humanity was nothing. The Prometheus Dawn was a colony ship. It carried 50,000 humans to a new world. Men, women, and children packed into the giant vessel. They had traveled for 2 years already. They had 2 more years to go. Then everything went wrong. Captain Maria Santos was on the bridge when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed everywhere. The ship's main drive was failing. Not just breaking down. Failing completely, how bad is it? She asked her chief engineer. The engineer looked at his screens. His face was white. Captain, the reactor is melting down. We have maybe 6 hours before it explodes. We are stuck in the middle of nowhere. The nearest human station is 3 light years away. Captain Santos felt her heart sink. 50,000 people, 50,000 lives depending on her. They were in what the galaxy called the neutral zone. Empty space between the Varath and Cathari territories. Send out a distress call, she ordered. Send it to everyone. Tell them we need help immediately. The distress call went out. It reached the Vareth hegemony first. Their military picked up the signal. They discussed it for 10 minutes. Then they ignored it. Why risk a ship to save humans? Humans were not important. Besides, the neutral zone was politically complicated. The Cathari collective received the signal too. They also talked about it. They also decided to do nothing. One Cathari commander said it clearly. These humans are not our problem. Hours passed. The reactor got hotter. Families huddled together in the lower decks. Parents held their children. Everyone knew they were going to die. Then a different signal came back. It was weak. It came from a small planet called Mirana. The message was simple. We are coming. Hold on. Captain Santos had never heard of the Mirani. Nobody on her ship had. They looked them up in the database. The Mirani were a tiny species. Just 3 billion people on one world. They had only 12 long-range ships. They were famous for one thing. They were peaceful. They never fought wars. They never took sides in galactic politics. Captain, her communications officer said quietly, according to this data, if they send their ships to us, they will empty their entire emergency response fleet. They will have nothing left for themselves. Captain Santos stared at the screen. These people were coming to save them. These strangers were risking everything. The Mirani fleet arrived 3 hours later. 12 ships. Small compared to the massive colony ship, but they came ready to help. They brought extra reactor cores. They brought food. They brought medical supplies. They brought hope. Elder Senna commanded the rescue fleet. She was old even for a Mirani. Her skin had a soft blue color. Her eyes were large and kind. She spoke to Captain Santos over the video link. We will repair your reactor, Elder Senna said. But it will take time. You cannot travel for many months, so we will take you home, all of you. That is too much, Captain Santos protested. We cannot ask you to do that. The journey will take 6 months. Elder Senna smiled gently. You did not ask, we offer. All species deserve a chance to see tomorrow. That is what we believe. We give freely. We expect nothing in return. And they did exactly what they promised. The Mirani stripped their ships of everything they could spare. They gave humans their emergency supplies. They gave their medical equipment. They even gave their personal food rations. Many Mirani ate less so the human children could eat more. The journey back to human space took 6 months. It was a hard 6 months. The Mirani ships were not built to carry so many extra people. Everyone was cramped. Food was tight. But nobody complained. The Mirani shared everything they had. During those months, humans and Mirani learned about each other. Children from both species played together. Adults shared stories. The Mirani taught humans about their philosophy. Every life is precious, they said. Every person matters. Kindness is never wasted. Finally, the fleet reached human space. The 50,000 colonists were saved. Every single one. Earth sent ships to meet them. When the humans transferred to the Earth vessels, there were many tears. Both species cried as they said goodbye. Before Elder Senna left, Captain Santos held her hands. The human captain had tears running down her face. "How can we ever thank you?" Santos asked. "You saved us. You gave everything." Elder Senna touched the captain's face gently. "You do not need to thank us. Just remember. Remember that kindness exists. Remember that life is precious. That is enough." "We will remember," Captain Santos promised. "I swear to you, humanity will remember." And humanity did remember. Within a year there was a memorial on Earth, a huge building made of white stone. Inside were the names of every Mirani crew member. Every single person who had helped save the colonists. Their pictures were there. Their stories were there. School children visited on field trips. The human government created something called the Senna Protocol. It was a law. Any species in distress, no matter who they were, would receive help from humanity. Always. No exceptions. The Mirani food wrappers from those 6 months, they were put in museums. The blankets the Mirani had shared, preserved behind glass. Every small piece of that rescue was saved and documented. The other species in the galaxy thought this was strange. Why make such a big deal about one rescue? The Verith laughed about it. The Cathari called it emotional weakness, but humans did not care what others thought. They remembered. They built monuments. They told stories. They made sure every generation knew about the Mirani, about Elder Senna, about the day when strangers became saviors. 150 years would pass before the galaxy learned what it truly meant when humans said, "We remember." 150 years passed. The galaxy changed. Empires rose and fell. Wars were fought and ended. Technology advanced. But some things stayed the same. Humanity grew. In those 150 years, humans went from 30 colonies to 90 colonies. They were still not the biggest power. The Cathari had 250 worlds now. The Verith had 400. But humanity was no longer weak. They were strong. They were respected. Other species noticed something odd about humans. They kept records of everything. Every treaty. Every trade agreement. Every favor. Every slight. Humans wrote it all down. They never forgot anything. This was unusual. Most species forgot the past after a few generations. Old agreements were forgotten. Old friendships faded. Old debts were ignored. That was normal in the galaxy. Move on, forget, look forward, but not humans. Humans remembered everything. The year was now 2997. Dr. Sarah Chen worked in the Human Diplomatic Corps. She was a historian. Her job was to study the relationships between humans and other species. She loved her work. She loved learning about the past. One morning, Sarah was reading through diplomatic reports. Most of it was boring. Trade disputes. Border discussions. The usual business. Then one report caught her eye, the Mirani. That name made her stop. She knew that name. Every human knew that name. Sarah opened the report. Her hands started shaking as she read. The Cathari Collective had issued an ultimatum to the Mirani homeworld. The message was simple and brutal. Leave your planet in 90 days or we will destroy you. The Cathari wanted the Mirani planet. It sat on an important hyperlane junction. Ships using that junction could travel faster across the galaxy. It was valuable territory. The Mirani themselves were not valuable. They were just in the way. Sarah felt sick. The Mirani had no military. They had maybe 20 ships now, and those were all civilian vessels. They had no allies strong enough to fight the Cathari. They were helpless. She immediately sent the report to the Human Council. She marked it as urgent. In the message, she wrote, "The Mirani saved 50,000 human lives 150 years ago. They gave everything. Now they need us." The Human Council met within 3 hours. 50 representatives from 50 human worlds. They all read the report. They all knew the history. Every human learned about the Senna rescue in school. It was part of their culture, part of their identity. The debate started. Some council members were worried. "The Cathari are much more powerful than us," one representative said. "They have 250 worlds. They have massive fleets. If we interfere, they might declare war on us." Another representative stood up. She was old. She had gray hair and tired eyes, but her voice was strong. "I visited the Senna Memorial when I was 7 years old," she said. "I saw the pictures. I read the names. I learned how the Mirani gave their food so human children could eat. Are we going to let those people die now? The room went quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing. They remembered their school trips to the memorial. They remembered the stories their grandparents told. They remembered what Elder Senna had said. All species deserve a chance to see tomorrow. The vote was called. It took 14 minutes. The result was unanimous. 50 votes, all yes. Humanity would help the Mirani, no matter the cost. The orders went out immediately. Every human military base received the same message. Prepare for deployment. Destination Mirani space. Mission defense of Mirani homeworld. Within 48 hours, something incredible happened. The largest military mobilization in human history began. The entire home fleet left Earth. That was 40% of all human military forces. 300 warships, 10 carriers, 20 support vessels. Other human fleets joined them. From Mars, from New Terra, from the outer colonies. They all came. Every human world sent what they could. Even colony defense forces that were supposed to stay home. They came too. The galaxy noticed. How could they not? Hundreds of human ships moving in one direction, all going to a small planet that meant nothing to galactic politics. At the same time, human ambassadors started contacting other species. Every species that humanity had helped over the years. Every species they had traded with. Every species they had treaties with. The message was always the same. The Mirani saved us when we were nothing. They asked for nothing in return. Now they face extinction. We are going to help them. We ask you to stand with us. Stand with those who believe in kindness. Stand with those who believe every life matters. Or do nothing and be counted among those who forget. The responses started coming back. Not everyone helped. Many species stayed neutral. They did not want to anger the Cathari. That was understandable. The Cathari were dangerous, but 27 species said yes. Most sent only a few ships, tokens of support, symbols of friendship. But 3 species sent real fleets. The Draxians sent 30 warships. The Eveni sent 20. The Tormic clan sent 40. These 3 species had their own reasons. The Draxians remembered when human merchants had helped them during a famine. The Eveni remembered when human engineers had fixed their failing orbital habitats. The Tormic remembered when human doctors had cured a plague that was killing their children. They all remembered. Just like humans remembered. War Chief Korath of the Cathari Collective watched this happening. At first he was confused. Why were the humans doing this? The Mirani were nobody. Their planet was useful, but the people meant nothing. Then Korath became amused. The humans were being emotional, stupid. They were risking war over an old debt. Over charity given 150 years ago. By people who were long dead. But as more and more human ships moved toward Mirani space, Korath stopped being amused. This was serious. The humans were actually going to fight. He sent a message to Earth. It was played for the entire human council. Korath appeared on the screen. He was tall for his species. His scales were dark red. His eyes were cold. You risk war with the Cathari Collective for what? Korath asked. For a species of farmers and poets. For a world that gave you charity 150 years ago. Everyone involved in that rescue is dead now. This is madness. Stand down. The human ambassador recorded a response. Her name was Lisa Martinez. She was young, only 35 years old. But she spoke with the voice of all humanity. War Chief Korath, she said calmly. We are a young species. Perhaps we have not learned the galaxy's wisdom of convenient forgetting. We still remember every kindness shown to us when we were weak. The Mirani ships still fly in our museums. Their food wrappers are in our archives. We have the names of every crew member who gave up their rations for our children. We know their faces. We tell their stories to our children. She leaned forward. Her eyes were hard as steel. We do not forget, War Chief. We will never forget. The Mirani saved us. Now we will save them. You can choose to stand down, or you can learn what happens when you threaten someone humanity loves. The message ended. Korath watched it 3 times. Each time he felt something he rarely felt. Doubt. These humans were serious. They were not bluffing. They really would fight. They really would die for this debt, for this memory. For the first time in his career, War Chief Korath felt afraid. The human fleet arrived at Mirani space 3 weeks later. They came out of hyperspace in perfect formation. 300 warships, 10 carriers, support vessels, and something else that made War Chief Korath stare at his screens in disbelief. Colony ships, hospital ships. The humans had brought their colony ships to the front lines. These were not military vessels. They were civilian ships. Ships that carried families. Ships that carried children. Ships that cost billions of credits to build and could never be replaced. The humans had put them in the front of their formation, right where they would be hit first in any battle. Korath called his intelligence officers. "Explain this to me," he demanded. "Why would they put their most valuable ships in danger?" The intelligence officer was a young Cathari female. She had been studying humans for years. She looked at her war chief with worried eyes. "Sir," she said quietly, "they are making a statement. They are saying they will give everything, just like the Mirani gave everything for them." Korath felt his blood run cold. These humans were insane. No species did this. No species risked their most precious assets for someone else. But humans were not like other species. He was learning that now. On the Mirani homeworld, Elder Senna watched the human ships arrive. She was very old now, 170 years old. For her species, that was ancient. She could barely walk. But her mind was still sharp. Her heart was still strong. She had been just a young ship captain when she rescued the humans. Now she was the leader of her entire people. She had lived long enough to see this moment. The moment when the debt was repaid, except it was not supposed to be repaid. The Mirani had never wanted repayment. They had saved the humans because it was right, because life was precious, because kindness needed no reason. A message came from the human flagship. "Elder Senna," it said, "this is Admiral Marcus Webb of the Human Defense Fleet. We request permission to establish defensive positions around your world." Elder Senna activated her own communications. Her hands were shaking. "Admiral Webb," she said. Her voice was weak with age. "You must not do this. You will lose ships. You will lose lives. Our debt to you was paid long ago. We saved you once. That does not mean you must die for us now." Admiral Webb appeared on her screen. He was a big man with gray hair and kind eyes. He smiled at her. "Elder," he said gently, "there is no debt between friends. 150 years ago, your grandmother commanded a ship called the Morning Light. She gave her personal food supply to feed human children. We have her picture in our museums. We teach our children her name." He paused. His expression became serious. "Your people stripped the medical bays from your ships to save our families. Today we strip the shields from our ships to save yours. This is not sacrifice, Elder, this is mathematics. The equation was written in 2847. Today we balance it." Elder Senna started crying, old tears from old eyes. She had lived a long life. She had seen much, but she had never seen anything like this. "Humans," she whispered. "You magnificent, impossible humans." The human fleet spread out around the Mirani homeworld. They formed a defensive sphere. Every approach was covered. Every possible attack vector was defended. In the middle of the sphere, safe and protected, was the blue and green world of Mirana. The Allied ships joined them. Draxian warships took position on the left flank. Eveni cruisers covered the right. The Tormik clans defended the rear. 27 species had sent ships. Even the small tokens mattered. Each ship was a statement. Each ship said, "We stand with those who remember kindness." War Chief Korath assembled his invasion fleet. He had come prepared for an easy conquest. 100 Cathari warships, more than enough to destroy the defenseless Mirani. But now there was an enemy fleet waiting for him. A fleet that outnumbered him. A fleet that was ready to die. He called a meeting with his commanders. They all said the same thing. "We can win this battle, but we will lose many ships, many lives. The humans are positioned to make us pay for every meter of space. And they have put their colony ships in the front. If we attack, we will have to destroy civilian vessels. The galaxy will see us as murderers." Korath studied the tactical displays. He was a good commander. He could see the trap. The humans were not just defending. They were challenging him. They were saying, "We dare you to fire on civilian ships. We dare you to kill children. We dare you to prove you are monsters, and if he did attack, if he destroyed those colony ships, every species in the galaxy would turn against the Cathari. Even his own people would question him. You killed children to take a planet? That would be his legacy." His intelligence officer brought him more information. "Sir," she said, "we have been analyzing human culture. We found something important. The Senna rescue is everywhere in human society. There are memorials on every human world. There is a holiday called Remembrance Day. Children learn about it in school. There are museums, books, movies, songs." She showed him images. Human children visiting memorials, human families celebrating Remembrance Day. The most prestigious award in human space was called the Senna Medal. It was given to people who showed exceptional compassion. Korath stared at the images. He finally understood. The humans had not just remembered the rescue. They had made it part of their identity. They had turned one act of kindness into a civilization-wide religion. Remembering was not just something they did. It was who they were. Sir, his intelligence officer continued, there is something else. We found records of what humans do to their enemies. They have long memories for kindness. She paused. They also have long memories for cruelty. She showed him more data. Species that had betrayed humans, species that had attacked human colonies, species that had broken treaties. The humans never forgot. Even after generations, they remembered. They held grudges for centuries. They were patient. They waited. But they always paid back those who hurt them. Korath felt something he had rarely felt in his long military career. Fear. Real fear. If he attacked now, if he killed those humans, if he destroyed the Mirani, humanity would never forget. Never forgive. The Cathari would have an enemy for the next 1,000 years. An enemy that grew stronger every year. An enemy that would wait generations if needed to get revenge. He looked at the tactical display again. The human ships waited, silent, patient, ready to die, ready to kill. The message was clear. You can have this planet, but the price is war with humanity, forever. And then something else happened that changed everything. A new fleet appeared on the sensors. Korath recognized the ships immediately. The Varath hegemony, the ancient rivals of the Cathari. 50 Varath warships positioned themselves behind the Cathari fleet. A message came from the Varath commander. It was cold, professional. Cathari Collective, this is the Varath Third Fleet. We have no love for humans, but we cannot permit a galaxy where debts mean nothing, where kindness is forgotten, where the weak can be destroyed with no consequences. Stand down. Korath could not believe it. The Varath were intervening. They hated humans, but they hated the idea of a lawless galaxy more. The humans had made this about principle, about memory, about honor, and the Varath had chosen honor. Within the next hour, 6 more species sent similar messages. Some were neutral powers, some were traditionally Cathari allies. All of them said the same thing. Stand down. We cannot allow this. The galaxy is watching. Korath realized he had lost. Not the battle. The war of perception. The war of ideas. Humanity had turned this into a test of what kind of galaxy this would be, and everyone was choosing memory over forgetting, choosing honor over expedience, choosing kindness over cruelty. He had to choose, fight everyone and lose, or retreat and survive. The choice was obvious. But it hurt. It hurt because he knew what this meant. The Cathari had been defeated without a shot fired, defeated by memory, defeated by a debt 150 years old. Korath gave the order. Stand down. Withdraw the fleet. But before Korath could turn his ships around, he sent one final message. It was transmitted to the human flagship, to Admiral Webb, to all the humans who were willing to die for an old debt. The message appeared on every human ship. Korath's face filled the screens. His red scales looked darker in the harsh light. His eyes were cold, but there was something else there. Respect and fear. Humans, Korath said slowly, you have won. Not through strength of arms, not through superior tactics. You have won because you remember, because you refuse to forget. I came here thinking you were fools. Emotional children playing at galactic politics. I was wrong, he paused. When he spoke again, his voice was different, quieter. But you have also terrified us. A species that remembers everything is a species that can hate forever. You remember kindness for 150 years. You build memorials. You teach your children. You make it part of your culture. That is beautiful. But what happens when you remember cruelty? What happens when someone truly wrongs you? Admiral Webb responded immediately. His face appeared on the Cathari screens. He was calm. His voice was steady. War Chief Korath, you are correct to be afraid. We do remember everything. The good and the ill. We have long memories for kindness. And yes, we have long memories for cruelty. Webb leaned forward. I suggest, War Chief, that you never give us reason to remember you with hatred. Because we do not forget. We do not forgive. We wait, we grow stronger. And we always collect our debts, both the good ones and the bad ones. The transmission ended. The Cathari fleet began its withdrawal. They moved slowly, carefully, not because they feared an attack, but because they understood they were leaving a moment that would be remembered. This retreat would be studied by military academies. It would be analyzed by historians. It would be told as a story. The day the Cathari backed down from humans, on the Marani homeworld, celebrations erupted. People poured into the streets. They cried. They hugged strangers. They looked up at the sky where human ships circled protectively. They had been saved. Their world would continue. Their children would live. Elder Senna stood at her window. She was crying. But these were tears of joy. She had saved humans 150 years ago because it was right. She had never expected anything in return. But the humans had remembered. And they had come. And they had been willing to die. A shuttle landed outside her residence. Admiral Webb came to visit her in person. He walked into her room and immediately bowed deeply. A full formal bow. The kind of bow humans reserved for royalty. Elder, he said. His voice was thick with emotion. On behalf of all humanity, thank you. Thank you for showing us what kindness looks like. Thank you for saving our people when no one else would. Thank you for giving everything and expecting nothing. Elder Senna walked to him. She was so old, so frail, but she reached up and touched his face. The same gesture her grandmother had used with Captain Santos 150 years ago. Young Admiral, she said softly, your people have taught the galaxy something important today. You have shown that memory is power, that gratitude is strength, that kindness is never wasted. Webb smiled. His eyes were wet. We learned it from you, Elder. You gave everything for strangers. You showed us that every life matters. We just remembered the lesson. The news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Or rather, at the speed of faster-than-light communications. Every species heard the story. The humans had mobilized their entire fleet. They had risked war with a major power. They had put their colony ships in danger. All for a debt 150 years old. Some species admired it. Some species thought it was madness. But every species understood the message. Humans remember. If you help them, they will never forget. If you harm them, they will never forget that either. The Verath hegemony sent a formal communication to Earth. We intervened today not out of love for humanity, the message said. We intervened because we cannot allow a galaxy where memory means nothing, where debts are forgotten, where kindness is weakness. You have reminded us all that civilizations must stand for something. Over the next month, something remarkable happened. Small species began approaching humanity, species with only one world, species with small fleets, species that had been ignored by the great powers. They came with offers of alliance. They came with treaties. They came because they understood something. If they helped humanity, even in small ways humanity would remember. And if they were ever threatened, humanity would come. Just like they came for the Marani. The Human Council met to discuss these offers. Some representatives were worried. If we accept all these alliances, we will be committed to defending everyone. That is a huge responsibility. We might be pulled into conflicts we do not want. The old representative who had spoken before stood up again. She smiled. That is exactly the point, she said. We remember kindness. We defend those who need defending. That is who we are now. That is what the Senna Rescue taught us. We do not abandon those who believe in us. The vote was called. Again, it was unanimous. Humanity would accept the alliances. They would protect those who could not protect themselves. They would be the guardians of the small and the weak. The Webb Doctrine was formalized. Named after Admiral Marcus Webb, it became official human policy. Any species that aids humanity, no matter how small the gesture, will receive absolute protection if threatened. The debt of kindness never expires. The galaxy's power structure began to shift. The great empires still had more ships, more worlds, more wealth. But humanity had something else. They had loyalty. They had alliances built on memory. They had hundreds of species who knew that humanity would come if they called. The Cathari collective found themselves isolated. Other species remembered how they had tried to destroy the Marani, how they had threatened the weak. Trade agreements were not renewed. Treaties were allowed to expire. Nobody trusted them anymore. War Chief Korath was forced to resign. His replacement sent a formal apology to the Marani. It was accepted, but the damage was done. The Cathari had learned a hard lesson. In a galaxy where humans remembered everything, reputation mattered, history mattered. Actions had consequences that lasted for generations. On Earth, a new wing was added to the Senna Memorial. It was called the Hall of Gratitude. It contained information about every species that had answered humanity's call. The Draxians, the Iveni, the Tormig clans, all 27 species that sent ships. Their names were carved in stone. Their flags hung from the ceiling. Their stories were told. Human children still visited on field trips. But now they learned 2 lessons. First, remember those who help you. Second, honor those who stand with you when times are hard. Elder Senna lived for 3 more years after the standoff. When she died, she was 173 years old. She died peacefully in her sleep. The entire Mirani world mourned, but Earth mourned too. Flags flew at half-mast. The Human Council declared a day of remembrance. Admiral Webb himself gave the eulogy. He spoke about kindness, about courage, about the power of one person to change the galaxy. A statue of Elder Senna was erected on Earth, right next to the statue of her grandmother. 2 generations of heroes, 2 generations of teachers. 2 Mirani who had shown humanity what it meant to be truly good. The inscription on the base read, "She saved strangers and asked for nothing. We remembered everything and gave all." This is the way the galaxy had changed. Not through war, not through conquest, but through memory, through the simple act of refusing to forget, through gratitude that shook worlds. 50 years after the Mirani standoff, the galaxy looked very different. Humanity was now one of the 5 great powers, not through conquest, not through intimidation, but through something the galaxy had never seen before: the power of guaranteed loyalty. Humanity had defense treaties with 147 species. Most were small. Many had only 1 or 2 worlds. Some had tiny populations. But together, they formed a network that covered the entire galaxy. Touch one and humanity would come. Touch humanity, and 147 species would remember. The Webb Doctrine had proven itself again and again. When the Draxians faced a plague, human doctors came. When the Iveni mining colonies collapsed, human engineers rebuilt them. When pirates threatened the Tormig trade routes, human warships hunted them down. Each time humanity helped, they documented it. They recorded names. They built memorials. They made sure everyone knew. "This is not just good politics," one human ambassador explained. "This is who we are. We remember, we honor, we protect." The Verath hegemony, ancient and powerful, sent an official delegation to Earth. The Verath had ruled for 10,000 years. They had seen empires rise and fall. They had fought countless wars. But they had never seen anything like humanity. The Verath ambassador was named Theron. He was old even by Verath standards. His silver skin had turned almost white with age. He had served his empire for 300 years. He had negotiated treaties with 100 species, but he had never felt nervous before. Until now, he stood before the Human Council. All 50 representatives were there. The room was simple. No grand decorations, no displays of wealth. Just a large wall covered in names, thousands of names, millions of names. Every person who had ever helped humanity. "Humans," Theron began. His voice was formal. His posture was stiff. "The Verath hegemony wishes to discuss an alliance. We have watched you for 50 years. We intervened at Mirani space because it was right. But we have come to understand something. You are changing the galaxy." The Human Council listened silently. Theron continued. "For 10,000 years, the galaxy has operated on power. The strong dominate. The weak submit. Treaties last only as long as they are convenient. Debts are forgotten. History is revised. That is how things have always been." He paused. His old eyes swept across the council members. "But you refuse to play by these rules. You remember everything. You honor debts that other species would forget. You defend the weak even when it costs you. And somehow, impossibly, you are winning." One of the human representatives stood. Her name was Diana Torres. She was young, only 40 years old. But she was the granddaughter of the woman who had voted to help the Mirani all those years ago. She had grown up visiting the Senna Memorial Ambassador Theron, Diana said. Her voice was calm but strong. "You say we are winning, but we are not trying to win. We are trying to remember We are trying to honor. We are trying to build a galaxy where kindness is not forgotten, where helping others is not weakness, where memory is strength. She gestured to the wall of names. Every person on this wall helped us when we needed it. Some saved thousands of lives. Some shared a single meal. We remember them all. Because size does not matter. The gesture matters. The kindness matters. The choice to help matters. Theron was quiet for a moment. Then he did something no Vareth ambassador had done in recorded history. He bowed, not a slight bow of respect, a full, deep bow of genuine humility. Humans, he said. His voice was softer now. The Varath hegemony wishes to learn from you, not just an alliance. We want to understand. How do you remember everything? How do you keep track? How do you maintain this for generations? Diana smiled. It is not complicated, Ambassador. We write it down. We build monuments. We tell stories. We teach our children. We make remembering a core part of who we are. It is not a burden. It is a gift, because when you remember the good people did, you honor them. You give their kindness immortality. The alliance between humanity and the Vareth hegemony was signed 3 months later. It was the most significant treaty in galactic history. 2 of the 5 great powers united not by fear or greed but by shared values, by memory, by honor. The Varath began building their own memorials. They started documenting their history differently. Not just the wars and the conquests, but the small acts of kindness, the times they had helped others, the times others had helped them. It was a cultural revolution. Other species noticed. The idea spread. Memorials appeared on dozens of worlds. Museums opened dedicated to gratitude. Schools began teaching about the importance of remembering kindness. The human way was becoming the galaxy's way. On Mirani, the planet that had started it all, a massive project was completed. The Museum of Mutual Remembrance. Half of it was dedicated to the Mirani rescue of humans. The other half was dedicated to humanity's defense of Mirani. 2 acts of kindness. 2 moments that changed everything. The museum became the most visited place in the galaxy. Billions of tourists came every year. They walked through the halls. They read the stories. They saw the preserved food wrappers from the rescue ships. They saw the tactical displays from the standoff. They learned about Elder Senna. They learned about Admiral Webb, but most importantly, they learned the lesson. Kindness is never wasted. Memory is power. Gratitude can shake worlds. 100 years after the Mirani standoff, a young Cathari student visited the museum. Her name was Kiara. She was studying galactic history. Her assignment was to understand why the Cathari had declined as a power, while humanity had risen. She spent 3 days in the museum. She read everything. She watched every video. She studied every document. On the last day, she sat in front of the statue of Elder Senna for hours. Just thinking, a human guide noticed her. He was an old man now. He had been a child during the standoff. His father had served on one of the human ships. The guide sat down next to Kiara. Do you understand now? He asked gently. Why things changed? Kiara nodded slowly. Her scales were wet. Cathari did not cry often, but she was crying now. We forgot, she whispered. We forgot that power without honor is empty. We forgot that today's weak might be tomorrow's strong. We forgot that cruelty is remembered just as much as kindness. The guide smiled sadly. Yes, he said. But you can learn. That is what this museum is for. Not to punish the Cathari, not to glorify humans, but to teach everyone. Remember kindness, honor debts, protect the weak, build a galaxy worth living in. Kiara returned to Cathari space and became a teacher. She taught her students about the Mirani, about humans, about memory. She started a movement. Young Cathari began demanding change. They wanted their government to remember, to honor, to be worthy of respect. It took another generation, but the Cathari changed. They apologized formally to dozens of species they had wronged. They built their own memorials. They joined the growing network of species who believed in the power of memory. 300 years after the Senna rescue, the galaxy celebrated what they called Unity Day. It was the anniversary of the Mirani standoff. Every species participated. Every world held ceremonies. Everyone remembered. On Earth, in the Museum of Gratitude, a new exhibit opened. It was called The Lesson. It contained just one room. The walls were covered floor to ceiling with names. Billions of names. Every act of kindness recorded in 300 years. every person who had helped someone else, every debt of gratitude still remembered. In the center of the room was a simple plaque. It read, "We are humanity. We remember, always, this is not weakness. This is strength. This is not sentiment. This is survival, because a galaxy that forgets kindness will tear itself apart, but a galaxy that remembers will endure forever." Below that, in smaller letters, was a quote from Elder Senna, spoken 150 years after her death through archived recordings. "We gave supplies and received a guardian. We gave food and received a promise that echoed through time. The humans taught us that in a galaxy of forgetful empires, memory itself is the greatest weapon and the greatest gift. And at the very bottom, carved in stone that would last millennia, humans do not forget those who aided, and their gratitude can shake worlds." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Kindness was remembered. Debts were honored. The weak were protected. And it all started with 12 small ships, a young captain named Santos, and an old elder named Senna who believed that every life deserved a chance to see tomorrow. Memory had changed everything. And humanity had taught the galaxy how to remember.